Chicago, Illinois. It is a blessing that we are able to have someone of his stature in our presence, his love and his commitment for our people. I want everybody to stand up and let's put our hands together as we bring down our keynote speaker for tonight, Brother Steve Coakley.
I'm gonna clean that stuff up. Because I wouldn't want Martin to have to leave that laying on his mouth. Oh, yeah, there we go. I'll just keep feeding. See, actually, all of them are ready to roll.
So we're gonna start with that first?
You know what, I almost have to hand these so I can tell you how they feel. Hey, you all are lucky to have an African like that, Brother Minister Brown, too. That's some stuff. Hey. I wish I could take him on the road with me, because some of these cities, the video men be watching the lecture, and they go, and got the camera going the other way. And I appreciate the brother Alton Maddox and his wife and family. I appreciate the United African Movement. I appreciate you Africans coming out here this evening to hear the brother, see if I can help make some sense for you. And we're going to go till they throw us out the place. I was in Columbus, Cincinnati, Ohio this morning at 8 a.m. After my plane had been canceled this morning and yesterday to get myself back to Maryland to get here to New York. And all I could think of was getting stuck somewhere and not being able to get here. And I really want to thank brother who rescued me, because they canceled my 6:30 flight, which would have got me home at 7:30. I could have jumped on the train by 1, been here by 5, got here by 6. Instead, they pushed the plane back till 12. I got here at 1, got home at 2. If it hadn't been for Brother Eric Muhammad scooping me up to see to it that I got here, I wouldn't have made it. And especially remind me before I go off to tell you about those programs and where he'll be at. And you all had Dick Gregory earlier this month, check? All right. And I believe when he was here, he showed you a film of Reverend Kyle's kind of describing those last minutes of Martin King. Check. Okay. And we're going to go up into those moments. We're going to look at some perspectives from different, very critical moments. I really got Martin King assassination material coming through my hairs because I have gobbled up so much information in the last 60 days even, because now the masses of the people are catching up to the availability of new critical information. In many cases, nobody has a need for the facts. So it wouldn't be much if I shared you with something about somebody today doing something to somebody else, and tomorrow they showed up and we gave them our unconditional support in absence of the facts. So facts don't always make a difference. Sometimes you like somebody real bad, but they beat you. And the fact of them beating you overwhelms you sometimes, and you love them still. But that's not relevant to the fact. So many times everybody's not ready for a fact because they're not going to move if the computation compels change in viewpoint. But now, due to the efforts, and for many years, I was very critical of the King family for not being as diligent as, say, Medgar Evers' wife in hunting down the killers of her family's keystone. So we made a couple of trips to Atlanta. And I can tell you honestly that running through Morehouse and Clark, Atlanta U, and getting 2,000-3,000 people jammed in an auditorium that holds 1,500, and watching the children of the families involved, watching the children of the... Okay. All right, that was you? All right. All right, now we get the light. We straight black? All right, this is the man here too. Got many men. So the King family, we made it easier for them to get strong. And part of it has to do with many times people are aware of who does certain things, but they're scared of them. I know for a fact, African people, that most of the Negro leadership is scared of Jesse Jackson. And when I say scared, they aren't scared of him because he kicks their butt or puts his elbow on them or dogs them down. They're scared of Jesse Jackson because they recognize that he has the unlimited and full unconditional support of the U.S. government, and they will harm you for harming someone that they spent many years putting in place. So no, listen to me now. Now, when I say this, I don't mean you, I'm talking about the leadership. Why does the leadership, no, they'll tell you under their breath, they all tell me, Steve, you know I know, yeah, but I still see you. And so again, if the facts do not change the behavior, we're not ready yet for the computation. And African leadership is afraid of Jesse Jackson because of their perception that he has unconditional support from the U.S. government. And as a result of that, they would kill, and some have been killed to protect his resurrection. Earlier this month, you heard from Reverend Bevel. No, sister, I'm going to tell the truth. If you're ready for the fact, if you be ready for the fact, what's up, Brother Jack? My leader, Brother Jack Felder. Yes, I give it to him. Yeah. But things have gotten so bad since Martin has died, people are even spreading the rumor that the white man didn't do it, Martin committed suicide. Now that's a pathological remnant of witnessing a murder. You see, many of y'all ain't seen death. Y'all ain't been up on no fight where the man next to you got shot or killed or stabbed or beat, and you had to deal with destruction because many of those who were around who witnessed the assassinations during the critical period that the centralization of worldwide power had to be protected, and all certain kind of people got wiped, white and black, of which Martin is just one of them. And during that phase and during that period, people who were associates and allies of the people who witnessed these assassinations became muted or devastated in their activities for African people because they recognized that America had the power to kill without retribution. And that's only relevant if you are actioneer. If you are actioneer, then that's relevant to you. What is the impact of retaliatory to white supremacy? And many times I've gotten in arguments with African scholars, the argument over the what if theory. Don't talk against the white man. What if he just comes in here and crushes you because he's bigger than you? That moment, that dialogue, that perception that evil has all the business, evil got all the power. Even good old God can't stop evil the way they got it going. God forgives the evil. And check this out, show you how clever white people are. The FBI put out a report called Project Megiddo. It was an analysis of possible domestic terrorism during Y2K. And they had, how do we teach a local sheriff and a local police chief how to analyze conversation against white people? Now, in deciding what was relevant, the FBI said, we don't care if, and this is their term, black, gray, and white. We don't care what category that source comes out of. If it says that the white man is going to meet destruction due to God or Y2K, we going to investigate them. The black sources are the ones who don't agree with them. Obviously, that's us. And they use the word black, but it's other sources on that level who don't agree with white supremacy the way it's established in this society. 2, gray. Gray are people who are into UFOs and voodoo cards or tarot cards or this or that, and there's no relevant way to calculate their prediction, and white are friends and allies. So when they want to analyze the dialogue of destroying white people, they take in all the information. Even the one who's on the corner that looks and sounds crazy, that's saying something about the destruction of white man, they'll put another crazy looking one next to them to listen, at least to see if somewhere there's a hidden bestower of information about their demise. Now, so the FBI is trying to teach the police chiefs what is an active threat and what is a passive threat. This is the passive threat. God is going to punish the white man for colonizing the whole world. God is going to hurt the white man and bring down his system for doing all these wicked things and raping and robbing our ancestors. God, through weather or disaster or financial destruction, is going to punish the white man. The FBI, listening very carefully, says, passive. Now this is the active threat. God came to me last night and empowered me with the destiny and the might and the insight to kick the white man's ass on behalf of God for what he's done to us. That's an active threat. That God is going to work through those who are inspired by him, it or she, and do something to evil as a result of that inspiration. You understand the difference? So listen when you're in the neighborhood and understand what's likely the goal point. Goal point. You see, when studying the assassination, where is the goal point? Where is the point, Brother Maddox, where they decided that all of the systems were set up and the assassination could go forward? Hell, James Earl Ray was the patsy. He was supposed to be at the hotel at 3 o'clock. 3:10, 3:30, 3:45, Ray ain't showed up. Do you understand that though he was lost if he had stayed lost just 2.5 more hours, there could have been no shooting because one element of the shooting was not in place, the patsy. Check. So at 4 o'clock, Ray shows up, and quickly Raul rushes him into the hotel, drops his blanket and other incriminating things in the room, and makes other people see his face. Now we're at a go point. Go. Assassination, go. What did they say about the Audubon Ballroom? They said if they had been searching that day, we were told to stand down on shooting Malcolm. A go point. No checking. All systems go. You with me? Where's the go point? Because you can learn a lot by studying the go point. Martin was supposed to be killed in Louisville, maybe, where his brother A.D. was, who eventually was murdered himself, who was at the Lorraine himself. When John Kennedy was going to be killed, Miami, Chicago, or Dallas, they had a multiple set of scenarios available for the go point. So when Kennedy heard they might be at the football game in Chicago, he didn't show up. So the go point went down. The night before Martin King was killed, he was at the hotel practically by himself. Everybody else had gone to the Mason Temple. If you really wanted to shoot him without anyone there around him, you could have shot him with that night, April 3rd, at the motel with him and Bernard Lee, the only 2 members of the staff in the vicinity. Why didn't they shoot him there? Because you don't take one down unless you got your replacement in the area to begin the process of association. I am the heir apparent of Martin King. So you had to wait till the right people got in the right spot. The street gang, the invaders, who in room 316 and 317, right down the hall from Martin King, they had guns. They had what? Guns. So if something got to going and the shooter was in the bushes and they had what? Guns. They could have shot back. So you had to get them out of the assassination scenario because potentially they could have shot a shooter. So at 5:51, only 8 or 9 minutes before Kyle says, and I step a few feet this way so they could get a better shot. You heard that, right? Yeah. Okay. And boy, he repeated it again just a couple of weeks ago on WOL in Washington, and it's some amazing amount of information is flushing fastly out of the bowels of the perpetrators as they now got much more scared that the shit about to hit the fan. So they're on edge and they're saying things now. Jesse, Bevel, Kyles, they're saying things now because they fear and smell the posse gathering in their horses around the facts. And maybe the people might listen. Now, I was really disappointed y'all didn't jump up out that chair that night of the 5th when you heard some of that stuff about you ain't no man in front of the white man unless you married. Come on, Africans. Marriage will make you strong and widen out your capability, but no white man's respect is given for any reason, not even no marriage. Don't perpetrate no shit like that. But then you have to work with white people to be like that. That's what working with white people do to you.
What about that suicide?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. I got that. I'm going to play it so we can hear it all together again. Martin King wasn't killed. He committed suicide because he committed adultery and didn't tell his wife. I'm alive because I committed adultery and I told my wife. Because I told my wife, if you don't put up with the way I am, because you know I'm going to do wrong, then don't be my wife. And then tell somebody if you don't have no trash like that, you ain't got no marriage. That's trash. Don't no sister accept no trash like that off no brother. And then run that the white man won't respect you unless you got something like that going on. Yeah, that's right. He gonna respect your dogism. A dog will respect a dog when he act like a dog. But we ain't sanctioning that. But then if you was there and you saw it and you know there was murder and you know it was conspiracy, you talk like that. Just get all crazy with your talking. The closer you were to the assassination, the crazier your shit get to talking. I'll show you Jesse Jackson forgive the killers only 1 hour after the assassination. He forgiven everybody. I forgive the killers of Martin King today, for it wasn't murder, it was hatred. Come on now, hatred ain't a crime, but murder is. Come on now, we listening. Don't go chasing for no white man who killed Martin King. In fact, if you do it right, he'll cooperate with what you're doing. See, only working with white people make you think like that. 551. He quoted, it's interesting, the first thing Bevel did when he started off, he quoted a book by Gerald Frank. Now it's interesting because that book quoted him as saying in the courtway, after King was shot, it was written that way. It was destined to be that way. Martin is killed, and that's the way it was supposed to be. Yeah, if you saw the script, if you know the ending to Sleepy Hollow and they make it into a movie, you still know the ending because you got the book. So you start knowing who knew what was up when they start talking about the ending and the thing ain't even over yet. Gerald Frank wrote a book that was financed by the FBI. So when Bevel talks about what Frank said, this is an opening statement. Do y'all read? Do y'all read? Y'all don't read. Y'all don't know history. Y'all heard this book. I know that shit. It's embedded in my head. I've been listening to it since 3 a.m. this morning. I've been up that long getting here just for the right to square that away and to go on with what the agenda is. That book that he quoted by Gerald Frank was mentioned on page 53 of William Pepper's book, Orders to Kill. I read everything I could find about the killing, but there wasn't a great deal available. One of the earliest and most prominent works was that of Gerald Frank's An American Death, which became in effect an official account of the case. Years later, I came across an internal FBI document dated March 11th, 1969, the day after Ray's guilty plea hearing. The memo to Hoover's number 2 man and closest confidant, Clyde, his girlfriend Tolson, came from Assistant Director Cartha DeLoach. Specifically, he wrote, quote, "Now that Ray has been convinced that and is serving a 99-year sentence, I would like to suggest to the director that he allow us to choose a friendly, capable author or use the Reader's Digest, which was the Annenberg family." And there's a big Jewish connection to the King assassination, starting with Frank Loeb, the mayor of Memphis, the avowed white supremacist, racist white man of the Jewish religion who got the whole damn strike started from the beginning by failing to respect a black garbage worker. And they tell you how they was with you in that struggle. In fact, the Robert Kennedy assassination, he wins the nomination June 6th of 68, only a month and a half after Martin is killed. He's out front. He's supposed to walk right down the aisle like I did coming in here. And all of a sudden, a guy named Frank Makowitz speaks in his ear and said, "We got to go out the back way." Kennedy specialized in going up the middle of crowds. But they told him, go out the back way. And he went out the back way and got shot. But Frank Makowitz got to Kennedy, leaving the ADL fact-finding position that Foxman got now. Makowitz had that job before he got Robert Kennedy killed. And they had smelly pants all over the assassination attempt of Khalid Muhammad. White people were the Jewish religion. But we'll come back to that. The memo said that the director allow us to choose a friendly, capable author or use the Reader's Digest and proceed with a book on this case. A carefully written, factual book would do much to preserve the true history of this case. While it will not dispel or put down future rumors, it would certainly help to have a book of this nature on college and high school library shelves so that the future would be protected. That's an FBI memo about why you finance a false book on the King assassination, because high school children who just hit up the index will hit up the bad books with the good books. And if we're in their mind, if we're in their heart, if we're in their home when no one else is there, and it's one of our books and one of their books, it's just as good as us convincing them it wasn't a conspiracy. So the fact that Bevel and the man whose book was chosen for the FBI to finance, to put on the shelf, was Gerald Frank's book, An American Death. So when the first thing out of Bevel's mouth is to read you from the book that the FBI financed. See, I couldn't read the book unless I told you how it got there. So if I used it on the condition of how it got there. Now let me use the book. Page 83, 84. Since the FBI gave him this, let's hear what he wrote that they gave him. 551. Now we're April 4th, 68. It's 551, still light outside. Now Raul had told Ray at 4 o'clock, go get some binoculars with the infrared on it. Meaning that, quote, nighttime action. But the shot is clearly in the day, and when you look at Jesse walking around the courtyard saying, I held him in my arms, I said, Martin, can you hear me? Martin, can you hear me? And he's lying and shit. That's dark. You see, it's dark. And so I just want to make that note, because dealing with the goal point is important, how that fits. 551. The doors of room 316 and 317 open. 9 invaders seen gathering up their belongings, bringing them downstairs and putting them into a trunk of a light blue Mustang. Car leaves motel going east. 551. The 9 brothers stand in 2 rooms down the hall from Martin King were told to leave. When I show you the shot from the balcony and you see the maid on the balcony, I just left a hotel. They wouldn't give me no room service because at 2:30 they told me they wasn't doing my room. And I said, well, we didn't get in all that, but I shortened all of that out. The point was that most hotel, motels stop cleaning up at a certain time, the day people go home. Check? So when you look at 551 on this action scene and you see this maid at the hotel with that big cart you put the sheets in, you'll go, why is she up there at damn near 6 o'clock in the evening? It's because at 5:45, Jesse Jackson went to the maid and said SELC is not going to pay the room of the invaders. Now you know you can't stay in a hotel past checkout without giving that money up. When 12 o'clock comes, if you ain't paid for the next day, that key don't even work no more. Check? So we 6 o'clock in the evening, and we want to believe that at 6 o'clock in the evening, having not received no money, all of a sudden Jesse tells the maid to get them out that room up there at 5:45. They were so pissed off since they had met with Martin King earlier that day and the day before, and he was even working on trying to raise $20,000 for them to help their little Black Power program. It seemed odd to them that someone else would come and tell them to get away. Besides, they were the only security Martin King had, and they had what? Guns, yes. Now, they were in a little trouble because earlier in the week, when the earlier march was held, they had come down to the thing that the gang boys had broke the windows that started the disturbance that made Martin King have to come back to Memphis. But in fact, what has happened now is a film has been found. Now, I don't know if Dick Gregory told you about it, but this film shows the first window being broken by a white man. That's real heavy, because he surely wasn't in the invaders. 2, they watched the young black men take the items out of the store windows and put them in cars that had license plates from Illinois. What was important about that? That's Blackstone Ranger country. And a loyal, lifelong associate of the Blackstone Rangers is Jesse Jackson, whose brother Noah Robinson is still in jail today for committing a murder with the Blackstone Rangers. Check. And now that one of the 4 men who Jesse went to defend in Decatur, all kind of weird like, goes to Decatur to defend 4 boys in a fist fight, kind of weird like, on the same week of the trial of the conspiracy of Lord Jowers, then found guilty. Same period, he goes there. On the day before King's birthday, he announces that he's filing suit against them. Of course, just the other day, one of the 4 men got arrested for beating up 2 more people. Him going to Decatur don't make no sense unless you understand when they dispatch national media to an issue, there are only so many trucks to send out. If you send a truck to Decatur, you can't send a truck to Memphis. Check? Now I got 2, 3 good black leaders that you respect calling me on the phone, telling me how they knew that Decatur was an organized distraction by Jesse to lead people away from hearing about the assassination of Martin King. But they said, now, as they said, now I hate to use this language, Brother Eric heard it because he was on the phone with me. Steve, don't be fucking with me about this in the public. I'll never say it in front of nobody. But you know, I know it's a fix because the NAACP president told me that when they went to get arrested, Jesse had a deal with the police for only 3 people to get arrested. Him, Lou Myers, and 1 other person. And when the president of the NAACP tried to get arrested, they threw him back. Said he wasn't on the script. And that's what I call, do you know the difference between a protest and a hotest? But they say, I'll never tell it in the public. But I'll tell you. Yeah, I've been hearing confession lately. Okay, let's go back to Gerald Frank's FBI finance book. So 551, they denote that the invaders are leaving. Now, the reason they know the time is because they actually gave him the FBI report watching from the rooftop. And you remember, Dick Gregory said that that same FBI that wrote that report said that Kyles didn't get to that room door till about 10 or 15 minutes before the assassination. But Kyles swears he was in that room for an hour. But it's the guys on the rooftop whose analysis everyone's using to try to draw some consistency about when it was or when it wasn't. 556. Dr. King in short sleeves comes out of room 306, stands on the balcony. Reverend Kyles comes out of room 306. They talk between themselves. Then King goes back in the room. Kyles stays on the balcony talking to the male coloreds in the courtyard below. You see, FBI looks down. What are they? Coloreds. So all in the report is colored this, colored that, colored this, colored that. And I'm sure if it wasn't the official report, it said nigger this, nigger that, nigger this, nigger that, right? So if we had the notes, we know a little better. Now, what does that mean? Dr. King comes on the balcony, he's got on short sleeves. But when he's shot, he's got a coat on, right? And if you listen to what Dick Gregory said when he was here, and I've been listening to so much of everybody's analysis that I may have missed it, but he said that they got that man who helped put the body on the stretcher, and he said the bullet was going up. Did you hear that, bro? That the bullet was going up. Okay, check. The bullet was doing what? Going up. Going up, okay. Now that's very interesting. Because when I play you the tape of Reverend Kyle saying, and then I heard the shot, it sounded like a boom coming from the courtyard. And then we're going to listen to Ernestine Campbell that says, I saw Jesse Jackson at the time of the assassination, and he was putting something into a tote bag. And then we'll go to the House assassination and look at the questioning of the coroner and the questioning of Ralph Abernathy, and you'll see that every congressman in that room knew that there were more than one shooter of Martin King. But up until this point, you have not heard in any quarters a significant discussion about there being more than one. In fact, everybody's fixed on one shot. It ain't but one problem. that when they studied the bullets, when Judge Joe Brown makes this affirmative statement, and the statement is so affirmed, and I'll tell you the statement before I read it in fact, because I got it memorized. He said that the bullets that we studied that came out of the body of Martin King did not even come from the nozzle of a rifle. So if the bullet that they checked didn't come from a rifle, what else is there? A bazooka or a what? A handgun. Big enough to fit in a tote bag. Now again, let me read Judge Joe Brown emphatically. He said, when I got the case, I ordered the rifle that was supposedly used to kill King to be retested. And it finally got tested. The tests were rather conclusive. The riffling on the bullet was wrong compared to the suspect's weapon. The electron microscopy that was used for analysis this time revealed that the bullet that was taken out of Dr. King was not fired from a rifle. Now, again, why would Jesse Jackson ask the invaders to be taken out of room 316, 317? Because when you get to the famous scene where everybody's pointing, if the wrong people are on the balcony who you can't control, then maybe they might have pointed at the bushes while everybody's pointing at the fake rooming house that had the pistol rifle laying in the doorway so that whenever, over there, oh, look, here's a rifle with a beer can say Ray and a prison radio say Ray. And I know this rifle got his prints on it. It just happened to be landing. Now, Ray got all the way to London. How come he couldn't at least take the rifle with him? So I asked Hosea Williams, we have him on tape. Hosea, was it Jesse's job, fiduciary, to in any way be responsible for the finances of SCLC that would have required him to tell the lady that something wasn't going to be paid? Yes. And he said, absolutely. Jim Harrison or myself or Ralph Abernathy were exclusively responsible for finance. Jesse couldn't keep his own money straight. That was not his job. Now, we got that on tape. That's an important thing at an important moment. It ain't the moment yet. We making the moment. Okay. You got that Billy Kyle's tape there? I think that's that. Let's see. Did I hand you that one? Let me see something here. It would say fact. Let's see. Put this on. Let's put this on. Yeah, this one. Yeah, I think that's the right spot. But it should be a tape. It had nothing there. Here it is. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Gonna try to go scenario. See if we can line it up. Now, let me just keep going while we get it together.
Grab the mic. Give it a light. Brown.
Let's see where we got this at now. Huh? Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great. Push the red. Oh, super. Don't forget to get it back. Oh, that's all right. You can play that. That's all right. You don't have to go backwards. Now, this is the night before. Now, goal point.
Of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read.
Okay, now turn the sound down. Just turn the sound down. That way it can just be running while I set it up. You can turn it down even lower. Turn it down to 0. Right, we'll run it up. No, I'll need that. That's okay. Thanks, man. Okay. Now, this is going to start the discussion about what should have happened. Okay. Dexter's now saying that we knew it was some reason we didn't want our father to go there that night. We just knew, and Dexter's been very instrumental in helping the family. Now, notice how Jesse is the third person in that walk. That's Martin first, Okay, let's go back a second. Now you got a freeze on there? You got a freeze on there? Y'all got a minute? Okay, if you got a minute, I got something to show you. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Stop. Freeze it right there. That's Jesse, that's Ralph, and that's Martin. And that right there is Hosea Williams, right? Now, this is the day before Martin is shot, April 3rd. This is the day that Martin goes to the Mason Temple late and was left alone and could have been shot with nobody there in the courtyard. Now, when they're at the bottom of the stairs, Hosea is actually third. But Jesse jumps in third, and then when they get to the halfway of the landing, Martin and Ralph go up, and Jesse holds Hosea back. Then, when Hosea held back and space between him and Martin, Jesse runs up the balcony, they run to that side of the balcony, and they take this famous last photo with Jesse, Martin, and Ralph in the picture. Now again, you don't kill anybody until in those last moments you get the person you want to think is the likely successor to him to be rubbing up close. Check? Now, on this particular day, Martin had got in Jesse about what he didn't like about him. I mean, Martin really just didn't like Jesse Jackson at all. In fact, as I'm reading the House assassination interview of Ralph, Ralph says, you know, in Martin's last days, he told me who he thought on the staff was an agent of the government. And the congressman keeps saying, well, Ralph, tell us, Ralph, tell us. And Ralph doesn't tell. He says, no, I'm not going to get into telling you, and this is not the place. Martin told me, it's almost like those names that Malcolm had in his shirt or something, you know. You're supposed to name the 5 names or something. It's like there's always the goal point is always close to the point of revelation. That somebody's going to reveal something and somebody steps up the goal point. Look, if you had been gradually grooming Jesse Jackson in fact, you can turn it on. Let's let it go. Let's let it roll. You got slow motion on there? You got slow motion? No, that's moving slow on the camera. You got slow motion on the film? Boy, if you had slow motion, we'd be in for a ball tonight. Now, that's Ben Hooks. Of course, you know he's from Memphis. And big-time Mason, judge at that time in Memphis. Now, that's the bottom of the stairway before they walk up. That's them being handed the injunction saying they can't have a march. And he's talking about how Martin got bullied into coming back. That's the Masonic temple right there where they had that last speech. And that night, and I'm going to step up a second. I'm going to go up to the day before. That night that you're looking at. Oh, stop it right there. Or turn it up, turn it up. Turn it up. We'll go it that way. And stop it right there. And let's listen to what he says as a setup. And then we'll go.
The last meeting was a terrible night. And
listen.
And he told us to go on and let Ralph speak.
Who? Okay, go back. We got to go back.
And
then we got to hear it again. He's saying now that it's raining that night, the night before the assassination. And it's raining that night, and Martin don't want to go. So he called Coretta in Atlanta and said, I'm not going, baby. I'm staying at the hotel. I don't feel good.
Let Ralph speak.
Stop it right there. Who? Let's go back. We got to keep doing. We got to go back. Let's go back a little bit. Okay, stop it right there. Let's just freeze, yeah. Now, I can show you Coretta say it. I can show you Ralph's book, And the Walls Come Tumbling Down, where he says it. I can show you the testimony of the King aides before the various committees. They said it. I can line you up 7 different people stating that on the night before the assassination, Martin was very uncomfortable with Jesse Jackson, having first went off on him the Saturday before. He went off on 2 people, Beverly and Jackson, both of whom were telling Martin that he was outdated and they were the modern version, and were telling Martin he didn't need to go to Washington for the spring offensive, Because remember, Bevel said, I told him to go there to fight the war. In fact, Bevel said, I said, if you don't drop everything you're doing and fight against the war, which was not a full, the Vietnamese still wasn't black people. So we shouldn't have been dropping all or nothing on just the war. Never take all your army and put in one battle. Goal point. Since 1964, the FBI had been gradually developing someone to replace Martin King when he had been totally eliminated. In fact, the memo is stated in the book, Official and Confidential, The Secret Life of J. Edgar Hoover by Anthony Summers. In fact, let me hold that up for the record. I just entered this Exhibit A. Okay. And it says on page 354, it's alluding to the FBI memo. When the true facts concerning the activities presented, such should be enough if handled correctly to take him off of his pedestal. When this is done, the Negroes will be left without a national leader of sufficiently compelling personality to steer them in the proper direction. This is what could happen, but need not happen if the right kind of national Negro leader could at this time, be gradually developed. How developed? Not gradually. Gradually. Because remember, this is 64. It wasn't until 68 that gradually got the go word. So that someone would be gradually developed so as to overshadow Dr. King and be in the position to assume the role of leadership of the Negro people when King has been completely discredited. That's January 4th of 64. And then it goes on to say that Sullivan, William Sullivan, who is the man who headed COINTELPRO, says Sullivan selected as King's replacement Samuel Pierce, a Republican attorney. Well, you all have it in this tape, and we have every researcher in the country fighting with those who repeat that falsehood. The person that William Sullivan selected was Samuel Proctor, not Samuel Pierce. Sullivan, in his book called The Bureau, states, I selected a black educator. What was Pierce? A black Republican attorney. And when brought before the House Assassination Committee and asked, could he have been the replacement to Martin King, he said, man, I have never even been to a protest in my whole life. It is not likely you could make me the head of SCLC. And he was correct. But Samuel Proctor, the president of North Carolina A&T at only 35 years old, the groomer, guider, and protector and teacher of Jesse Jackson to be like Martin King, Martin King's classmate at Boston University. It was Proctor, not Pierce. Now, what's key is that Walter Fauntroy, who chaired the subcommittee into the assassination investigation of Martin King, when I told him on the radio it was Proctor, not Pierce, he said, I read every secret document, and I even read confidential documents, and my friend, it says Samuel Pierce. Well, buddy, do you think they'd tell you the name if that was the name? And since we admit that we're still trying to undo what they done, we ain't gonna get into that's true because they told you so. But Samuel Proctor is dead now. You all should know Samuel Proctor, because he ran Adam Clayton Powell out of Abyssinia and left Greensboro, North Carolina, and came to New York, and he's the one that put Calvin Butts in Abyssinia. And he was an agent of the U.S. government. You might not want the fact. Proctor, Annabule, Proctor was deputy director of the Peace Corps in '63 while he was president of North Carolina A&T. Now, the Peace Corps were developed to be what you call soft spies. They go into the village and they spot the librarian. They spot the teen community leader, as opposed to, say, the CIA, who might profile the military leader or the government leader or the education leader. They spot the sub-leadership. And they spied so much that eventually they cut the Peace Corps out. So when you put a black man in as deputy of the Peace Corps in '63, he is a spy. Sergeant Shriver of the Kennedy family, the father of Maria Shriver, married to Arnold Schwarzenegger, is the man who ran the Peace Corps. Just a little bit about Proctor. Okay, let's go back. Let's turn the lights down, and let's come back to this last moment. And who does Andy say King asked to make that speech that night?
Really sublime.